My name is Hannah, and the first time my mother realized she had to press a call button and wait for me to show up, instead of snapping her fingers and ordering me around, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She was lying in a hospital-style bed in a small, clean room with beige walls and a TV mounted in the corner. On the door, in black letters, was her name and my father's name. Underneath, in smaller print, was the name of the facility: Brookside Long-Term Care. I walked in wearing navy scrubs and a badge that said, Hannah Miller, Director of Nursing. My mom squinted at it, then at me. "This is ridiculous," she said. "You're our daughter. We shouldn't have to talk to you through some buzzer like strangers." I smiled politely, the way I do with every difficult family member. "At Brookside," I said, "we use the call lights so we can track response times and make sure every resident is safe, Mom. You'll get the same care and the same system as everyone else. That's how it works." She opened her mouth to argue, then caught the look in my eyes and closed it again. For the first time in my life, the power dynamic had shifted. I wasn't her on-call, unpaid caregiver anymore. I was her nurse manager, her boss. And it only took losing 20 years of my life to unpaid babysitting to get here. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, in one of those modest split-level houses where you can hear every argument through the vents. My parents were both hard workers in the classic blue-collar way. Dad drove a delivery truck. Mom worked at a grocery store when she felt like it, which was less and less as I got older. I'm the oldest of 4. Then came my brother Jason, 2 years younger. Then the twins, Leah and Luke, when I was 10. By the time the twins were born, I was already more responsible than both my parents combined. Mom liked to joke that she had a built-in babysitter. Everyone laughed when she said it. Nobody realized she meant it literally. When the twins came home from the hospital, my job description changed overnight. At 10 years old, I was suddenly in charge of bottles, diapers, laundry, and entertaining a bored toddler and a cranky newborn at the same time. "You're such a little mama," people would coo. "You're going to be such a good mother someday." They didn't see me falling asleep in class because I'd been up half the night holding a screaming baby while my parents caught up on sleep. They didn't see my homework done at the kitchen counter with a toddler on my hip. By middle school, it was just assumed that if my parents were working or out, I was in charge. Jason was never asked to help. "He's a boy," my mom would say, like that was an excuse. "He's not good with babies. You're so much better at it." Translation: Jason was allowed to be a kid. I wasn't. When I was 15, I got my first chance at a real paying job. A friend's older sister worked at a little diner off the highway and said they were hiring dishwashers. Minimum wage, part-time, evenings. Nothing fancy, but it was money I could call my own. I brought home an application, filled it out, and left it on the counter for my parents to sign. Mom saw it first. "What's this?" she asked. "It's for that diner on Route 12, I said. "They're hiring. I can work a couple nights a week and weekends. I'll still watch the kids on your days off." She shook her head before I finished. "Who's going to watch the twins when we're both working?" she asked. "Jason? Please. He can't even keep track of his sneakers." "You could put them in after-school care," I suggested. "Lots of kids go." She gave me a look like I'd suggested we toss them in a dumpster. "Do you know how expensive that is?" she snapped. "Why would we pay strangers when we have you? You live here for free, Hannah. You can at least help out." Help out. Those 2 words became a weapon. Any time I wanted something that would give me a life outside the house, my parents pulled out the same line. "You live here for free. You can help out." Senior year, when my guidance counselor called home and said I had the grades for state college, my parents laughed. "Who's going to take care of the kids if you run off to some dorm?" my mom asked. "Besides, college is a scam. Look at your father. He didn't need a degree to put food on the table." "We'll talk about community college later," my dad added. "After the twins are older. Maybe you can take some night classes nearby." Always later. There was never a date attached to it. Just an endless not now. I graduated high school with honors and exactly zero idea how I was supposed to build a future. My friends packed up for college, took road trips, moved into dorms. I took over more hours at home. By then, Mom had quit her job entirely. "The schedule was killing me," she said. "Besides, we really need someone we trust with Lee and Luke. Someone we trust meant me. If Dad worked days, She scheduled errands and me time for those hours. If Dad picked up overtime on nights, she announced she was exhausted and disappeared into her room with her phone and a glass of wine, leaving me to bathe the twins, help with their homework, and put them to bed. Whenever I complained, she pulled out the scoreboard. "I carried you for 9 months," she'd say. "I wiped your butt for years. Don't act like watching your own siblings a few hours a day is some kind of torture." A few hours was a lie. It was most of my waking life. By 19, I realized that if I didn't force a change, nothing was going to happen later. So I enrolled myself in community college. I picked the practical, affordable option, a 2-year associate degree in nursing. I applied for financial aid, took out a small loan, and set my class schedule around my parents' work hours. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd be proud. Instead, my mom stared at the acceptance email and sighed. "Nursing?" she said. "Why would you want to wipe old people's butts for a living?" "Because they actually get paid for it," I said. "Unlike me." She ignored that. "What about the kids?" she demanded. "What are we supposed to do when you're in class?" "They're 12, I said. "They can be alone for a few hours after school." "Jason is 20, he can help, you can pick up more shifts." She shook her head. "You're being selfish," she said. "You're putting your own dreams over your family." That was decision day for me. For the first time, I pushed back. "I love them," I said. "But they're not my kids. They're yours. I've been raising them for 10 years. I'm allowed to have a life." Mom went cold. "If you live in this house," she said, "you follow this house's rules, and my rule is family first." I looked around at the clutter, the toys, the stacks of bills, the cold pizza on the counter. Family first. As long as that meant me last. "I guess I need a different house then," I said. Moving out at 19 with no savings and no car was not glamorous. It was messy and terrifying. I crashed on my friend Kayla's couch for a month while we looked for an apartment we could afford together. I took the bus everywhere. I picked up whatever shifts I could at a local nursing home as a nursing assistant trainee, while scrambling to get my CNA license so I could legally work more hours. My parents called and texted constantly. At first it was guilt. "Lee cried herself to sleep last night because you weren't here. I can't believe you'd abandon your family for some stupid classes." Then it turned into bargaining. "If you move back, we'll help you with gas. You can save money and still go to school, just transfer to online." Then anger. "You're ungrateful. We did everything for you, and the second you have a chance, you leave us with all the responsibility." I learned to put my phone on silent and answer when I had the energy. I visited my siblings when I could. The twins treated it like I'd gone off to some fantasy world where I didn't have to share a room or eat whatever Dad threw in the crock pot. Jason mostly ignored me, too wrapped up in his own drama. My parents acted like I'd died and left them with my ghost. But I stayed out. Every night, after getting home from the nursing home, my back aching from lifting residents, I would put my textbooks on Kayla's coffee table and study. I saw a different kind of caregiving there. One where people appreciated the work. One where you could clock out. Nurses and CNAs still got burned out and underpaid, sure. But at least the labor was acknowledged. At least there was a paycheck. At least there were rules. Rules about how many patients you could safely handle. Rules about breaks, about overtime, about what was and wasn't your responsibility. I clung to that idea. The nursing home I worked in then was fine. Old building, low budget, overworked staff. But it gave me experience. I learned how to talk to families who were scared and defensive, to residents who were angry and confused. I learned to manage meds, calm dementia patients, spot when something was wrong before it got critical. And slowly, I moved up. I got my CNA license. Then my LPN. Then, after a few years and a lot of sleepless nights, my RN. By 26, I was a charge nurse on the evening shift at a different, nicer facility. My parents, meanwhile, barely understood what I did. They called when they wanted something, or when they wanted a fight. "I saw on Facebook you went on vacation," my mom said once. "Must be nice to have that kind of free time." It was 3 days at a cheap Airbnb, I said. First time I'd been anywhere in years. "Funny," she said. "We never got a vacation. We were always too busy working and watching kids." "We?" I almost said. But I let it go. The twins grew up, graduated and moved out. Jason had a couple of kids and a trail of ex-girlfriends. Guess who my parents expected to babysit their grandkids? Can you watch the boys Saturday? My mom asked. Jason and Amanda want a date night, and your dad and I are exhausted. I'm working, I said. Even if I weren't, I don't babysit for free anymore. There was a sharp intake of breath. Excuse me? She said. You're their aunt. Family doesn't charge family. Family also doesn't steal 20 years of unpaid labor and call it helping out, I replied. If I babysit, I get paid like anyone else. Otherwise, no. She hung up. I cried a little after that conversation. Not because I regretted setting the boundary, but because it hurt realizing how transactional their love for me really was. They didn't want me. They wanted my labor. Fast forward a few more years. I was 31. I just accepted a new position at a place called Brookside Long-Term Care, a nicely run facility about 40 minutes from my hometown. The job? Director of Nursing. It was a huge step up. I'd always been the one at previous jobs who organized things naturally: schedules, trainings, little quality improvement projects nobody else had time for. At Brookside, they wanted someone exactly like that. Someone who could handle staff schedules, state inspections, family complaints, and still know how to jump in and help on the floor when things got rough. The pay was more than I'd ever imagined making when I was that exhausted teenager with a baby on her hip. I moved into a decent apartment by myself for the first time. Real furniture, not hand-me-downs. A mattress that wasn't on the floor. A plant I kept alive. I'd gone low contact with my parents by then. We texted on major holidays. I sent birthday cards to my siblings and nieces and nephews. But I no longer answered every call, every emergency that turned out to be, "We don't feel like cooking, can you bring food?" I felt free, in a way I didn't know how to describe. Then the universe, with its dark sense of humor, dropped a new development on my desk. It was a Tuesday when the admissions coordinator at Brookside knocked on my office door. "Hey Hannah," she said, poking her head in. "Got a new potential admit. Insurance is approved, we just need to see if we can meet their care needs. Mind looking over the pre-admission assessment?" "Sure," I said. She handed me a thin file. The first page had basic information. Date of birth. Primary diagnoses. I froze halfway down the page. Resident 1, Daniel Miller. My father. Resident 2, Patricia Miller. My mother. For a second I thought maybe it was a coincidence. Miller is a common last name. There had to be other Daniels and Patricias in the world. Then I saw the address. My childhood home. The walls of my office seemed to tilt for a second. "You okay?" the coordinator asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I know them," I said. "They're my parents." Her eyes went wide. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I had no idea. Do you want me to send them somewhere else? I can call the hospital and—" I shook my head. "No," I said slowly. "We're one of the only facilities in the area that takes their insurance and has 2 beds. If we turn them away, they'll end up somewhere worse. I won't do that." "Are you sure you're okay with this?" she asked. I thought about it. "Professionally?" I said. "Yes, we're about to find out." They arrived the next day. The hospital transport van pulled up, and 2 stretcher beds rolled through the doors. Dad had had a minor stroke a couple of weeks earlier. He could walk with a walker, but he was unsteady and needed help with almost everything. Mom had worsening arthritis, uncontrolled diabetes, and early heart failure. Years of poor diet and no exercise were catching up hard. They'd been managing at home with a patchwork of Jason dropping by when he felt like it, a neighbor checking in, and Mom refusing to admit she couldn't do everything. Then Dad fell hard and Mom couldn't pick him up. The EMTs took one look at the chaos in the house and called Adult Protective Services. Now here they were. I watched from the end of the hall at first, invisible in a way they'd never let me be when I was a kid. They looked not the larger-than-life people who controlled my every move. Just 2 frightened, aging adults who had run out of capacity and options. Somewhere underneath my anger, something in me softened. I stepped forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller?" I said, professional voice on. They both turned. My mom's eyes took a second to focus. Then she gasped, "Hannah?" I nodded. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "Are you visiting someone?" I gestured to my badge. "I work here," I said. "I'm the director of nursing." Her gaze flicked to the badge, then back to my face. Confusion warred with pride and something like resentment. "Well," she said finally, "at least you're putting that degree to use." Dad gave me a weak smile. "Hey kiddo," he said. "Didn't expect to see you here." "Likewise," I said. We did the intake paperwork. Vital signs, med reconciliation, social history. It was surreal, asking my parents questions like, "Do you feel safe at home? And do you require assistance with bathing and toileting?" Mom answered like she was offended by the entire process. "I do fine," she kept saying. "If your father hadn't been so stubborn about the latter, we wouldn't even be here." Every time she said something minimizing, I checked another box in my head. Same old mom. When we got to the financial section, it became clear why they'd picked Brookside. Their insurance covered a portion of skilled nursing care for a limited time. After that, they'd be private pay or Medicaid, once they spent down what little they had. Private pay at a nicer facility was out of the question. This was it. They were here to stay. Later that afternoon, after the transport staff had gone and my parents were settled in their shared room, Mom called me back in. "So," she said, gesturing around, "when do we talk about you taking us home?" I blinked. "Home?" I repeated. "Yes," she said impatiently. "This place is fine, I guess. But you're our daughter. It makes no sense for us to be in some stranger's home when we could live with you. You can look after us, just like you did with the kids." A familiar cold knot formed in my stomach. "Mom," I said evenly, "I live in a one-bedroom apartment on the second floor. There's no way to safely get Dad up the stairs. I work 50+ hours a week here. I cannot be your full-time caregiver." She waved a hand. "You've always managed before. You can cut back on work. We raised you, it's your turn to take care of us." "That phrase 'we raised you' hit a nerve." "Yes," I said. "You did the bare minimum of parenting, and then drafted me as unpaid help for the rest." Her mouth fell open. "How dare you," she whispered. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "How many times did I come to you with opportunities?" I asked. "Jobs, classes, chances to have a normal teenage life. And you said no, because you needed a babysitter. You told me family doesn't pay family. You called me selfish for wanting anything for myself." "That's not the same," she said. "Those were your siblings. And you are my parents," I said. "You chose to have children. I didn't. You chose not to plan for your retirement or your health. I didn't. I built a whole career to get out of the trap you put me in. I am not stepping back into it now." Dad cleared his throat. "Let's just calm down," he said. "We're all tired. Maybe we can figure something out later." I shook my head. "No," I said. "What we're going to figure out is your care plan here at Brookside. As your director of nursing, I will make sure you are treated fairly, safely, and with respect. As your daughter, I will visit when I can. But I will not be your free 24/7 caregiver again. That's over." Mom stared at me like she didn't recognize me. "You're really going to leave us in a nursing home?" she asked. "Like we're strangers?" I met her eyes. "I'm going to leave you in the hands of trained staff who will be compensated for their work," I said. Something I never was. I turned to go. "Dinner is at 5, Vi added, slipping fully into professional mode. "Nurse Angela will be in to check your blood sugar before then, Mom. If you need anything, use the call light." Behind me, I heard her hiss, "Unbelievable," to my father. But I kept walking. The first few weeks were interesting. Mom decided she would test every boundary in the building. She rang the call light every 10 minutes for things she absolutely didn't need help with. Adjusting the TV. Moving her water cup 2 inches. Straightening her blanket. She made passive-aggressive comments to the aides. "I guess some people get paid to be lazy," she'd mutter when they didn't sprint the second she hit the button. I heard about it in staff meetings. I heard about how she complained to other residents' families that the care here is fine, but the management is cold, especially that young director who thinks she's better than everyone. Dad, for the most part, just shuffled along, embarrassed. "Your mom's just scared," he told me once. "She's not used to needing help." "Neither was I at 16, I said. That didn't stop her. He didn't have a good answer for that. As their daughter, part of me wanted to smooth everything over, to apologize for my mother's behavior to my staff, to take on extra work so they wouldn't bear the brunt of it. As their boss, I knew I couldn't. At our next staff in service, I addressed it head-on. If any resident, including my parents, is rude or manipulative, document it, I said. Set clear boundaries. Use the same professional tone you would with anyone else. You do not have to tolerate abuse because you're getting paid. Your time and your labor matter. After the meeting, one of the CNAs, a tough woman named Trish, pulled me aside. You sure you're okay with us writing her up if she goes off? She asked. Yes, I said. If she violates the behavior rules, treat her exactly like you would any other resident. What about when she asks us to track you down? Trish asked. Because she already tried that. I sighed. If it's a true emergency, page me, I said. If she just wants to complain or argue, tell her she can talk to me during visiting hours like everyone else. Trish grinned. I like you, she said. The first real showdown happened over something small. Laundry. Mom had always been obsessive about hers. Growing up, she would scream if we folded towels wrong or put darks and lights in the same load. At Brookside, families could choose to do residents' laundry themselves or pay a small monthly fee to have the facility do it. I explained this on admission day. I'm not doing our laundry, Mom said immediately. You are. No, I'm not, I said. I'm your nurse manager, not your maid. You can sign up for facility laundry like everyone else. She made a face. I don't want strangers touching my clothes, she said. Then you can ask Jason or the twins if they're willing to pick it up once a week, I said. Those are the options. She huffed and refused to choose. So I marked the box for facility laundry. A week later, she summoned me to her room during my rounds. She held up a t-shirt. This is faded, she said. The laundry here is ruining my clothes. I told you I didn't want them doing it. You need to come take our things home and wash them properly. I took a slow breath. Mom, I said, your clothes are fine. They've been washed in an industrial machine with regular detergent. That's it. She glared. You used to do laundry for 6 people without complaining, she said. Don't act like this is such a big deal. That was the problem, I said. I did it without complaining, and you took it for granted. I'm not repeating that pattern. Her cheeks flushed. You're really going to sit there and tell me you won't help your own parents with something as simple as laundry? She demanded. Yes, I said calmly. I am telling you that. You are receiving all the services your insurance covers. Anything beyond that is your responsibility or Jason's. I will not personally take home baskets of your clothes on my days off. That's not healthy for me. She stared at me, mouth opening and closing like a fish. Finally, she hissed, You're petty, and threw the shirt back in the basket. Maybe I was. But I also knew if I gave an inch, she would take a mile. Today laundry, tomorrow sleeping on my couch and expecting me to bathe them before work. I'd lived that life already. I wasn't going back. Over time, my parents began to realize something. I was serious. When Mom rang the call bell constantly for non-emergencies, staff politely reminded her that other residents needed care too. When she tried to guilt a new CNA into staying past her shift to chat, the CNA said, I'm off the clock, Mrs. Miller. I'll see you tomorrow, and left. Behind all of that was my support. My staff knew I had their backs. That mattered more than I realized. One evening, about 3 months in, I found Trish sitting at the nurse's station looking furious. What's wrong? I asked. Your mom, she said. She just told me that when you were a teenager, you never minded watching the kids, because you weren't doing anything important anyway. My jaw clenched. She really said that? I asked. Oh yeah, Trish said. Then she told me I should be grateful to have this job instead of flipping burgers. I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them. Document it, I said. Every comment like that. If it keeps happening, we'll bring her in for a behavioral care conference. Trish nodded, mollified. What did you say back? I asked. I told her I have a degree, same as you, Trish said. And that even if I was flipping burgers, my time would still be worth money. I smiled. Remind me to give you a raise recommendation, I said. The behavioral care conference happened sooner than I expected. We sat in a small meeting room, mom, dad, the social worker, and the unit manager. We went over her chart, her blood sugar, her mobility, her pain management. Then we got to behavior. Mrs. Miller, the social worker said gently, we've had several reports of you using disrespectful language toward staff. Mom scoffed. People are too sensitive these days, she said. I just say what everyone else is thinking. I slid copies of the documented incidents across the table. Calling staff lazy, I said, reading, telling them they're lucky to get paid to stand around, and saying my CNAs aren't real nurses is not acceptable. This is their workplace. You will treat them with respect. She looked at me like I'd betrayed some unspoken alliance. You're choosing strangers over your own mother? She demanded. I'm choosing my employees over anyone who abuses them, I said. Including you. You told me my time wasn't worth money for years. I will not let you do that to my staff. The room went quiet. For once, she didn't have a comeback ready. Dad cleared his throat. We'll do better, he said softly. Right, Pat? She stared at the papers, jaw tight. Finally, she muttered. Fine. It wasn't an apology. But it was the closest thing I'd heard in a long time. Not everything was a battle. There were moments, small ones, when the lines blurred, and I remembered they were human, not just villains in my personal narrative. Like the night I found Dad in the hallway at 2 a.m., confused and trying to find the bathroom. I guided him back and sat with him while he dozed. Never thought I'd end up like this, he murmured. Thought I'd work till I dropped. You sort of did, I said gently. You just didn't drop in a convenient spot. He chuckled weakly. I know we leaned on you too much, he said. Your mom and me. With the kids. The words hung in the dim light. I should have pushed back more, he continued. Should have told her to let you live your life. Why didn't you? I asked, not accusing, just genuinely curious. He looked so small, hunched on the bed. Felt like we were drowning, he said. Bills, kids, shifts. You were a lifeline. It was easy to grab the nearest rope and not think about how it felt on the other end. He took a shaky breath. That doesn't make it right, he added. But that's the truth. I swallowed. It wasn't the apology I'd fantasized about, the dramatic confession and heartfelt understanding. But it was something. I appreciate you saying that, I said quietly. We sat in silence for a while. When I finally got up to go back to my office, he caught my hand. You're good at this, he said. You always were. I'm proud of you, kiddo. I walked out before he could see the tears in my eyes. Months turned into a year. My parents settled into a routine. Physical therapy, meals, bingo, doctor appointments. Mom still complained. That was her default. She compared everything to how she would have done it at home, forgetting that at home usually meant me doing it for her. But she also made friends. She organized a little clique of complainers in the dining room. It was almost funny, watching her bully other residents into sending meals back if the potatoes were cold. My staff learned how to handle her. Mrs. Miller, they'd say, if you're not satisfied, you can fill out a comment card. Half the time, she forgot by dessert. Every once in a while, I'd catch her bragging quietly. That's my daughter, she'd tell someone, nodding toward me. She runs this place. There was always a hint of annoyance under the pride, like she couldn't decide how to feel about it. Jason visited sporadically. Once, after he left, Mom said, you know, if you'd stayed home, you could have ended up like your brother. He's so relaxed. Never worries about anything. I stared at her. That's exactly why I left, I said. She didn't get it. She probably never will. People online love neat endings. They want the part where my mom breaks down sobbing, apologizes for everything, and we hug it out and undo years of damage in one heartfelt conversation. That's not how this went. There was no dramatic climax where I put her in her place in front of everyone. The revenge, if you want to call it that, was slow. It was in every moment where she pressed the call button and had to wait, because her needs were being balanced with everyone else's. It was in signing off on care plans that ensured she got exactly what was medically necessary, no more. No less, without me sacrificing my mental health to cover what her insurance didn't. It was in enforcing the same rules for her that I did for every other resident, no matter how much she insisted she should get special treatment because I was her daughter. It was in hearing her complain, everything here is on a schedule, and knowing that for once in our lives, the schedule wasn't built entirely around her. I didn't starve her. I didn't neglect her. I didn't abuse my power. I just refused to give her what she'd taken from me for so long. Free, unlimited access to my time and energy. One afternoon, about 18 months after they were admitted, we had our annual family care conference. Me, my parents, the social worker, the dietitian, the physical therapist. We went through the standard checklist. Vital signs. Mood. Mobility. Goals for the next year. At the end, the social worker asked, anything else we should talk about? Mom looked at me. Yeah, she said. I want to know if my daughter is ever going to forgive me for needing her. The room went quiet. All eyes turned to me. I took a slow breath. I don't need to forgive you for needing me, I said. Everyone needs help sometimes. I needed help when I was 16 and raising your kids. The problem wasn't that you needed me. It was that you acted like I owed you my whole life. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I continued. Right now, you're getting the help you need from an entire team of people, I said. Nurses, aides, therapists, housekeepers, cooks. They all show up, do their jobs, and go home. None of them are told they're selfish if they take a day off or say no to extra shifts. I met her eyes. That's all I ever wanted, I said. To be treated like a person doing a hard job, not a resource you could drain dry. She looked away. I don't know how to change the past, she muttered. You can't, I said. But you can stop trying to repeat it. You can treat the staff here with respect. You can tell Jason that if he has kids, he doesn't get to dump them on Lee and Luke for free. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Dad said, quietly, we'll try. The social worker nodded. That's a good goal, she said. Respecting the caregiving you're receiving now. I almost laughed at how clinical it sounded. But it was something. So here's where I am now. I run a nursing department in a building full of people who once thought they'd never need help, and now need help with almost everything. Some days my job is brutal. We lose residents. We get yelled at by families who are grieving and scared. The state pops in with surprise inspections. Staff call out and we scramble to cover the floor. On those days, my parents are just 2 names on my census list. Mrs. Miller, blood sugar stable, still complaining about the coffee. Mr. Miller, working with PT, jokes about racing his walker down the hall. On other days, I walk past their room, hear my mom telling someone, my daughter runs this place, and feel a strange mix of pride and nausea. People ask me, isn't it weird, being your parents' boss? Yes, it is. It's also the most honest reflection of our relationship I've ever seen. For years, they acted like my time had no value. Now, every hour of my time is tracked, billed, and protected by labor laws. For years, they expected me to give and give until there was nothing left. Now, the system I work in requires that the giving be balanced, measured, and paid for. For years, they told me family doesn't charge family. Now, they see invoices, insurance statements, the real cost of care. I didn't make them poor. I didn't make them sick. I didn't choose this ending for them. They did, a little bit at a time, every time they ignored a bill, or skipped a doctor's appointment, or treated my unpaid labor like an endless resource. All I did was step out of the role they wrote for me. If that feels like revenge, maybe it's because the only version of love they understand is the kind where someone is always in debt. If you're listening to this and wondering what you would have done, I get it. Would you have taken them home? Would you have quit your job to be their 24/7 caregiver? Maybe you would. Maybe your parents were different. Mine weren't. Mine were the kind of people who thought saying thank you was the same as making it right. Who believed that because they changed my diapers, I owed them my entire adulthood. I don't hate them. I visit them. I bring them decent coffee. I show them pictures of the life I built without their help. Sometimes my mom softens. She'll squeeze my hand and say, "We didn't know any better." Sometimes she hardens. She'll say, "I'd do it all again." Family takes care of family. And I'll nod, because arguing with her doesn't change the past. But inside, I think, so do I. Family takes care of family. I just finally learned that I am part of that family too. And that taking care of myself is not a betrayal. It's survival. Thank you for listening to my story.